The Iliad is 15,693 lines long. The Odyssey is 12,110. The Bible, both Testaments combined, comes in at roughly 783,000 words. Those are the texts the Western world considers the greatest works of literature ever created. The Mahabharata is 1.8 million words, over 200,000 verses, 10 times the length of the Iliad and the Odyssey combined, nearly 3 times the length of the entire Bible. It is the longest epic poem in human history, and most people outside of India have never read a single line of it. But the length is not what makes this text extraordinary. What makes it extraordinary is what is inside it. A family war so devastating it kills millions. A dice game that destroys a kingdom. A woman publicly humiliated in front of a royal court while every man who should protect her sits in silence. A god who drives a chariot into battle and delivers the most important philosophical conversation in the history of Hinduism while surrounded by death. The Mahabharata is not just a story, it is the story. The one that contains every other story. There is an ancient Indian saying, "What is found in the Mahabharata may be found elsewhere." What is not found in the Mahabharata exists nowhere. By the end of this video, you will understand the full arc of this epic, who the players are, what tears them apart, and why a text written over 2,000 years ago still speaks to the deepest moral questions any human being will ever face. But there is one moment in this story, one decision made by one character that changes everything. When you hear it, you will understand why the Mahabharata is not just literature. It is a warning. If you are new here, subscribe to Atlas of Religion. We break down the world's greatest religious texts with a level of depth you will not find anywhere else. The story begins with a family. 2 branches of the same royal bloodline, the Pandavas and the Kauravas, both claiming the right to rule the kingdom of Hastinapura. The Pandavas are 5 brothers. Yudhishthira, the eldest, is devoted to truth and duty above all things. Bhima, the second, is a giant. Physically, the strongest warrior alive, fueled by rage and appetite in equal measure. Arjuna, the third, is the greatest archer the world has ever seen. Trained by the legendary guru Drona, blessed by the gods, and destined for war. Nakula and Sahadeva, the twins, are skilled in horsemanship, swordsmanship, and astrology. Together, the 5 Pandavas are formidable. Separately, each is extraordinary. And all 5 share a single wife, Draupadi, a woman born from fire, whose humiliation becomes the spark that ignites everything. The Kauravas are 100 brothers, led by Duryodhana. Where Yudhishthira is righteous, Duryodhana is ambitious. Where the Pandavas were raised in humility, partly because their father died young and they grew up under the shadow of their uncle's court, Duryodhana was raised in power. He believes the throne belongs to his branch of the family. He resents the Pandavas, and his resentment curdles into something darker as the years pass, a jealousy so consuming that it drives every catastrophe that follows. The first crisis arrives through a game of dice. Yudhishthira is challenged to a gambling match by Duryodhana's uncle Shakuni, a master of loaded dice and manipulative strategy. Yudhishthira, bound by his code of honor, cannot refuse a challenge from a fellow royal. He accepts. And then he loses. He loses his wealth, he loses his kingdom, he loses his brothers, he loses himself. And then, in the most devastating wager in all of literature, he loses Draupadi. Draupadi is dragged into the royal court. In front of every elder, every teacher, every warrior, every man who calls himself righteous, she is publicly humiliated. Duryodhana's brother Dushasana attempts to strip her clothing. The The court watches. Bhishma, the patriarch, the most respected man in the kingdom, watches. Drona, the great teacher, watches. The Pandavas themselves, bound by the rules of the game they lost, watch. Draupadi asks one question that echoes across the entire epic. She looks at the assembled court and says, if Yudhishthira had already lost himself, did he have the right to wager me? If a man who is already a slave makes a bet, is that bet valid? Nobody answers. The silence in that court is the moral black hole at the center of the Mahabharata. Every person present knows that what is happening is wrong. Not a single one acts. Duty, protocol, hierarchy, cowardice, whatever the reason, they all sit and watch injustice happen, because intervening would break the rules of a system they have agreed to follow. If you are starting to see why this story still hits, subscribe and like this video. Atlas of Religion goes deeper into these texts than anyone else. Draupadi is saved only by divine intervention. Krishna, who is God in human form, miraculously ensures her garment can never be fully removed, no matter how much Dushasana pulls. But the damage is done. Draupadi swears she will not tie her hair again until it is washed in the blood of the men who humiliated her. That vow is the emotional engine that drives the rest of the epic. Every negotiation that follows, every attempt at peace, every diplomatic exchange, and all of it happens under the shadow of Draupadi's unbound hair and the vengeance it promises. The Pandavas are sent into exile. 13 years. 12 in the forest, 1 in disguise. If they are recognized during the 13th year, the exile resets. They endure it, they survive, they grow. When the 13 years end, they return and ask for their kingdom back. Duryodhana refuses. He will not give them 5 villages. He will not give them 5 rooms. He says that he will not give them enough land to place the point of a needle. Krishna himself attempts to negotiate peace. He goes to the Kaurava court as an ambassador. He warns Duryodhana that war will mean annihilation, not just for the Kauravas, but for the entire warrior class of India. He offers a compromise. Duryodhana refuses everything. He even attempts to capture Krishna in the court, a move so foolish that Krishna reveals a flash of his divine form, terrifying everyone present. Peace fails. War becomes inevitable. The Battle of Kurukshetra lasts 18 days. Every kingdom in ancient India sends warriors. The numbers in the text are staggering. Millions of soldiers. Thousands of chariots, elephants, horses, and foot soldiers cover a plain so vast the edges are invisible. This is not a battle, this is an apocalypse. The Mahabharata does not romanticize it. This is not a story where the good guys win cleanly and ride home in glory. The war destroys everything. Good men die for bad reasons. Bad men fight with honor. Rules of warfare are broken by both sides. Teachers kill students, students kill teachers, fathers fight sons. The moral clarity that should separate heroes from villains dissolves in blood and dust, until the reader and the characters themselves can barely tell the difference. Bhishma, the patriarch who watched Draupadi's humiliation in silence, fights for the Kauravas even though he knows they are wrong, because his oath of loyalty to the throne predates the conflict. He is killed on a bed of arrows, pierced so many times his body never touches the ground. He lies there for days, choosing the moment of his death, delivering final teachings while slowly bleeding out. Drona, the great teacher who trained both the Pandavas and the Kauravas, fights for the wrong side and is killed through deception. Yudhishthira, the man who never lies, tells a half-truth that causes Drona to lay down his weapons in grief. It is the first and only lie Yudhishthira ever speaks, and it haunts him for the rest of the story. Karna, the secret firstborn of the Pandavas' mother, abandoned at birth and raised as a commoner, spent his entire life fighting for recognition. He dies on the battlefield fighting for Duryodhana. Karna is arguably the most tragic figure in all of world literature. He knew the Pandavas were his brothers. He chose loyalty to the friend who gave him dignity when the world treated him as nothing. He chose wrong, and he died for it. By the end of the 18 days, almost everyone is dead. The Pandavas win, but the victory is hollow. Their sons are dead. Their allies are dead. Their enemies, many of whom they loved, are dead. Yudhishthira walks through the battlefield and sees the bodies of men he grew up with, trained with, laughed with. He does not celebrate. He grieves. This is what separates the Mahabharata from almost every other epic in world literature. There is no triumphant ending. There is no hero's parade. The victors inherit a kingdom of ashes and spend the rest of their lives haunted by what they did to win it. The text is asking you, was it worth it? Is any kingdom worth this? Is any principle worth this much blood? And buried inside the war, at the exact moment before the first arrow flies, is the Bhagavad Gita. The conversation between Arjuna and Krishna becomes the most important philosophical text in Hinduism. Arjuna sees his family on both sides of the battlefield and refuses to fight. Krishna responds with a conversation about duty, death, the immortality of the soul, and the nature of action that spans 700 verses and reshapes Hindu thought forever. The Gita is the spiritual heart of the Mahabharata. But the Mahabharata is the body that gives the Gita its weight. Without the war, without the dead children and the broken oaths and the silent court and the unbound hair, the Gita's teachings about duty and detachment would be abstract philosophy. Inside the Mahabharata, they are survival instructions delivered at the edge of total destruction. After the war, the Pandavas rule for decades. But the joy never returns. Eventually, they renounce the throne and walk toward the Himalayas, toward heaven. One by one, they fall. Draupadi falls first, then Sahadeva, then Nakula, then Arjuna, then Bhima. Each one falls because of a flaw. Pride, vanity, a broken vow, a secret attachment. Only Yudhishthira reaches the summit alive. And even there, the epic delivers one final test. Yudhishthira arrives at the gates of heaven and finds his enemies, the Kauravas, already inside. He is told his brothers and Draupadi are in hell. He refuses to enter heaven without them. He says, "I will go where they are. Send me to hell." This is the final lesson. The man who spent his entire life choosing duty, choosing truth, choosing righteousness, makes his last choice not based on rules, but on love. And for that choice, the illusion breaks. His brothers and Draupadi are brought to heaven. The test was whether Yudhishthira would choose loyalty over reward, even at the end of everything. The Mahabharata is not a story about good versus evil. It is a story about what happens when good people are trapped inside systems that force them to do terrible things. It is about the silence of courts, the cost of honor when honor demands bloodshed, the impossibility of clean choices in a world built on compromise. It is about the question that every human being faces at some point: what do you do when every option in front of you will cause harm, and doing nothing is the worst option of all? 2,000 years later, that question has not aged. Thank you for watching. If this video made you see one of the world's greatest texts in a new way, subscribe to Atlas of Religion. We go deeper into the stories that shape civilization than anyone else, and we are just getting started. If you want to keep going, the next video is right here. I will see you there.